I think all unlearning fat phobia is about for me is like being able to exist and be comfortable in your body and thank your body for what it's carried you through, regardless of what it looks like, and like treat your body with kindness, right?
Right.
And
right.
kindness does look like, hydrating enough and like getting in movement where it makes sense and feeding yourself whole foods. Like, but kindness to your body doesn't have to equal starving yourself or killing yourself in the gym or trying to make your body built the way it is, right? If you have polycystic ovarian syndrome or thyroid issues or whatever, first of all, it's no one's business, right? They're not your doctor. But why can't people just be like, but it's because so many folks are hell-bent on believing that they don't have internal work to do around these issues.
Right.
Even so many people that share this identity, right? That are also fat people.
Right.
Like they're viewing fat as inherently wrong.
I'm Sharmon.
I'm Katie.
And this is Unpacking Ethical,
a podcast where we sip our favorite drinks at the moment
and talk about some things.
Because there's nothing ethical about upholding the status quo.
Let's talk about it.
This week on Unpacking Ethical. Hey.
Hi.
Welcome back to another great week for Unpacking Ethical. We're going to talk about beauty standards and fat phobia with my good friend. I don't know if you and Sharmon have met before, but I think y'all have crossed paths.
Yeah, we're Twitter friends.
Celeste and I have become friends, become pretty close. I think since 2019, we did that panel.
Yes, the For Us By Us event.
For Us By Us event, and then BFC, Black Futures Collective. Shout out to them. And so it's so nice to have you here with us talking about this.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this space.
I'm excited. So we have a ritual. We always share what we're drinking, what we're sipping on. So I guess I'll let you start. What are you drinking tonight?
I am sipping on water.
Nice. Stay hydrated.
Gotta keep it cute. Keep it hydrated.
What about you, Sharmon? What you got?
Okay, I've got, I got my little secondhand mug with my turtles. I'm a little obsessed with turtles. Celeste and I were just talking about tortoises. I was trying to adopt one.
They're precious.
Look, but in there, so I've got some red ginseng tea. Ooh, so it's taking me back a little bit. I used to live off these packages when I lived in Korea. And I don't know, it just feels holistic, and I'm just needing some extra today. So
yeah, go for it. I love that. I was thinking about, you said you wanted a pet tortoise.
I did.
I was thinking about
I'm weird like that.
No, I think that's great. I've been thinking about different like pets for castle. And that's something that has come up a few times. So I don't know. I think that could be a good idea. I don't know.
See, I'm also loving the idea of like a pig or a goat, but I'm like, I need a house and a yard for that.
Yeah. Yeah. You
right now.
I love goats, and I'm like, I feel that.
They're precious, aren't they? Goats.
They're so cute.
I have a family friend that has one, and she was like, do not get a goat. Don't. But I'm like, I'm not going to heed your warning. When I have a house,
do it anyway.
I'm going to have a goat.
We love to see it. Come on, Black folks with farm animals.
Hey.
I love seeing that. I love seeing, like, especially like not last year, but the year before, it was like just everywhere where you were starting to see more. It was more visible, I would say. It's not that it hasn't been happening, but more like Black people like farming and gardening, and like we out here. I don't know what it's like now because things have shifted a lot over the past year and a half, and people have been affected in a variety of ways. But it's nice to see Black people with the land.
Absolutely, because I think, right, like that, Texas agriculture was literally like built on our backs. And so I think, and especially at least for me, right, like going back at least 4 generations, my family had a lot of land up in East Texas. And so back in the day, like I don't know where that land is now or to whom it belongs, but I think it's beautiful to see people returning to that, like, especially with gardening, right? Like folks that are like getting into the space of like, it's our roots, right? I think there's something about it.
It is. I remember, my family still has land in South Carolina, and they don't farm as much, but there's a lot of gardening and like walnut trees, lemon trees, chickens. And I remember like my grandfather taking us out and us, playing with the goats, trying to feed the goats. He'd be telling us to stay away from them goats before they eat our hand. but we love to play with them animals. And I think it does. It just takes you back. And there's just something inherent about being on the land and working with the land.
Yeah, it feels good. It feels good. And I can say that as somebody who started off small, just like doing stuff with Castle. We planted some cucumbers. We've done oregano, basil, clover, like just small little things. And I have some house plants, but it's just something about, honestly, I know what people say when they like your hands in the dirt and soil. I think it's the best way is like you feel very connected. You know what I mean? In a way that I don't think we get to experience that all the time, especially like as Black American people with so many kind of like familial disconnections, and historically we've all kind of been separated from that in some way, shape, or form. And so like it just is nice putting your hands in the soil and getting dirty. I don't know, I enjoy it. I need to do it more.
I was gonna say I gotta have some gloves on though, because you see these
nails. That's why you were looking at me like that. I love the nails.
I was like, like, I mean, I mind you, I've become obsessed with houseplants and I have a ton of them. And like, but like repotting, I still be like, hold on, like gotta protect the nails. But no, but in all honesty, like I'd like to, and I've expressed this, I think, to you before, like I'd like to get into gardening now that I own a home. Like I'd love to.
I should come over there. We can do some stuff.
Come teach me something. I'm ready.
We're gonna learn together now. I'm not.
You said I can't teach you. Well, I'm down. I'm definitely down.
I'm like, I'll kill a succulent in a heartbeat, but I do love
Sharmon,
I collect plants to kill. I mean,
Sharmon be killing her, but she'll be loving them to death though until they're on their last.
It doesn't matter. You're still giving them lovely lives, okay?
Just giving them a nice home.
Yeah, well, we'll jump right in. I'll share. My drink isn't as exciting. I just had a taste of some orange juice today. So, and
yes,
there's one store, I don't want to mention them, but they have a great, delicious store brand orange juice. It's like just a squeezed one, and it's very, very refreshing. So that's what I'm having today. So speaking of orange juice, this has nothing to do with what I'm about to say next.
I was like, I knew it. I was like, no, nothing got to do with orange.
There's nothing to do with orange juice. I will jump right into, though, talking about like, unpacking beauty standards, unpacking fatphobia specifically, because, Sharmon will be able to have a lot to share on this too, Celeste. But in the sustainable fashion space, I guess a lot of myself included, we naively thought coming into this space, because it's supposed to be kind of like a place where that's opposite of what you would normally see in mainstream fashion, that things would be different. We thought, oh, well, we're, there are no rules or regulations here. So we kind of get to make our own rules and do things differently and start fresh. And that is not something that we've seen at all. Like we still battle limited sizing issues, even though the average size in this country specifically is like, I think 16 was the last I heard, and a lot of brands still only go up to like a size 12. And we very early when I came into it, I even saw brands continuing the whole very thin, very young white models representing their brands. And that's harmful for a lot of reasons. But the biggest is that it's perpetuating those same harms of, this is who gets to be visible. This is who we want to see. This is also who gets to wear these clothes. And if we're talking about like specifically like, and we'll expand on this, but if we're talking about sustainability and ethics, like there's one face being placed with that. And that's also an issue. So I don't know. I just was curious. I guess I want to start off by asking you, like, what your personal like journey in dealing with fatphobia has been like. You can talk about fashion, whatever you want to, but we'll jump right in with that, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I think just it would be easiest for me to talk about fashion first and then kind of go into like what my journey has been and, how I've navigated like beauty standards. Right. And that society has. And so fashion wise, right? Like I wear a size 24. I am like full on plus size. And I want to name, even before I get into talking about like sustainable and ethical fashion brands, looking at the fact that like fashion as is, even when marketing to plus size people, does not market to people with plus size bodies, right? The typical plus size model you're seeing has a flat tummy, a fat ass. Can I cuss? A fat ass.
Yes.
A flat tummy, a fat ass, right? And it's like, it's this perfect, what do they call it? Pear shape, right? And that is what you see as like at the forefront of like plus size modeling. And plus size modeling, even if you remember America's Next Top Model back in the day, right? Like they had like Takara, who is literally just what you would call thick right now, right? Like, you have people that are like size 10, size 12, right? Because traditional fashion as is, right, is like really about the straight and narrow, quite literally. And so I think that just in fashion in general, right? Like for me being size 24, I can't walk into most stores and have access to things. Most stores that are even big box stores, right? And so I found it to be even more difficult when it comes to trying to like shop like ethically and sustainably. And I'm pretty vocal about the fact that, you know, when people shit on like fast fashion, like for fair reasons, I think a lot of folks are not looking at it through the nuanced lens that like for some folks, it's the only, for especially plus size folks, it's the only affordable option, right? Because the ethical brands that I do know, right, are so expensive. There's one in particular, and I think I've shared with you before, that goes up to like an 8X, and makes like the most beautiful dresses I've ever seen. And they're like $175 to $250. And like, that's like, I don't know. I think part of ethical fashion is also making sure it's accessible. And like fashion has never been accessible to people like me. And so, I guess that's a good segue kind of into like my own journey, right? Like growing up, you know, as long as I can remember, I've been a big girl, right? Like, I think it was around when I was 9 is like when I got a little chubby, because I developed polycystic ovarian syndrome then. It took me until I was 18 years old to be diagnosed, but, you know, I've always been a bigger girl, and I grew up hating myself, right? Like, let's call it what it is. Like back then, right, as I was coming up, right, I was born in 93, I'm 27. So I'm not like, I wasn't so much in the 90s as most folks, but even still, if you're like, I think media, right? Like still very young. What was in was like the super thin girls with the low rise jeans, oftentimes white, if not white, right? Often with Eurocentric features. And so like, I grew up just really I hated my curly hair. I hated being thicker. I hated like everything about myself, which is an awful way for a little Black girl to grow up, right? Like, and even acknowledging the privilege that comes in being light-skinned with that, like still there was no representation. And so I always grew up at odds with my body, even though I was a really active kid. I played in sports until I was 18 years old. And like, it was just such like a negative relationship. And it would be hard when I'd go back to school shopping my one time a year at JCPenney, right? And you know, all the cute clothes they didn't have in my size, right? Like in the girls plus sizes, I already realized then that there were like different and less options. And so it was hard, like, to be 110% honest with you, like growing to like love my body like has been a journey up until even now, right? Even now I'm navigating it. And you know, I think that in the past 2 years in particular, like I've really been repairing my relationship around food, my relationship around fashion, my relationship around like how I move through the world and take up space as a fat woman. And it's been liberating, but it's still tough, right? Like, for example, one thing that I'm doing right now is trying to be more kind to my body. And in me being more kind to my body, I'm trying to move more and like eat more whole foods. But like everything in my soul is like, we need to start counting calories again. And you need to start running again. Like, you know, even though I'm no longer in a space where I'm like doing this to like lose weight, I'm just doing it to be healthy. There are still such toxic traits that are like, that were, you know, ingrained in my head. Right. And so, fat phobia is just rampant, right? Like there's nowhere I can turn where it's still not an issue. It has taken a lot of self-work, a lot of therapy, and a lot of unfollowing and removing, you know, these mainstream images of beauty from my life, right? Like I follow a lot of body positive and fat positive Black women on Instagram, right? Also on TikTok. just on social media in general. And I know I'm kind of all over the place, but like I'm just kind of sharing like where I'm at. And you know what, I mentioned TikTok, and it's funny because there's been this phenomenon going on where at current there are men on that app that will literally, for the sake of getting followers and comments, likes, subscribes, talk about how much they love big women. And I'm like, y'all was the same ones teasing us in high school and also making us hate ourselves. Like, but now that it's popping, like you're here. And so like, like fatphobia has like impacted every area of my life, right? Especially in dating, right? Like, of course, everybody, like I got a bomb personality. I was a late bloomer, all the good stuff. And so everybody want to be with me in private, but like growing up, even in my early 20s, right? It's like, that's it, right? You cool, but not, I can date you publicly cool, not, I can be seen with you cool. And I think that all comes down to beauty standards and like perception and how people view you, right? And even then, sorry, I feel like I'm going on a tangent, but one more thing I want to say
keep talking.
One more thing I want to say is like the hypersexualization of my fat body, right? Like now, like as a grown ass woman, like that is what I encounter the most when dating on dating apps, right? Like it is just like I am fetishized and hypersexualized by, the folks that do approach me more often than not. And it's just like this world has so far to go, right? Because so many people are like, fat phobia isn't real and blah, blah, blah. And again, so many ethical and sustainable and apparently accessible clothing lines still don't think about people like me. Like, there's so far to go. Like I would say we've come far from those early 2000s low-rise jeans, those sleek and skinny girls being like the beauty standard. But even now, I mean, the beauty standard has come to the BBL body, right? Like the super tiny waist, the big ass. And so it takes a lot of work to remember that there is a place and a path for like fatness to exist and be celebrated in a way that doesn't over sexualize us.
Ooh,
that's a lot to unpack there.
It is, but did you want to say something, Sharmon?
No, go ahead.
No, but when you were talking, Celeste, I think an important piece that I wanted to like kind of highlight is the health aspect of it, because we can get into like the anti-Blackness and racism and how that is connected to fat phobia, but specifically within Western medicine and its kind of approach to illnesses, terminal illnesses, everything always links back to fat people. It's always
started.
And that is such a problem on so many levels. I actually had a debate. I was visiting some friends and I thought I was going to get put out of their house because I was absolutely like not okay with the comments that were being made about specifically Lizzo's body. Because it came up and they're like, well, I mean, she's probably not that healthy, right?
Ooh, Katie.
And I said, what I would always say is, and how do you know this? Please tell me how you know this.
Show me the MD, baby. Show me the MD, because like you're not a doctor, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you mentioned Lizzo, and I just like Lizzo is vegan. Lizzo performs on stage for hours at a time. Like I think like this notion that health is connected to like you have to be thin. Like thin does not equal healthy, nor has
it absolutely does not.
And like I had COVID in December and got pretty sick, had like pneumonia after, dealing with post-COVID syndrome to this day. And we're in August. And so much of my frustration came from doctors that are like, just lose weight. And I'm like, you're looking at my labs. I don't have high blood pressure, right? I don't have high cholesterol. I don't have any of the issues that you think I'd have. But even still, like the bias isn't even just in folks like, the folks that you said we're talking about Lizzo, like it's in our healthcare system. It's with these doctors. And I think like, that's like, oh my God, like that's like one of the things that kills me most, because it's like health, like thinness does not equal health, right? We look at, you say Lizzo, I immediately think of Sweetie. Love Sweetie. She's great. She just got a McDonald's meal like deal that's like this Big Mac and these chicken nuggets and whatever. And it's cute. It's cute because she's thin and she a baddie by society standards.
Right.
But it's not cute when it's somebody fat. When it's fat, now you're a doctor all of a sudden. Now you're concerned for our well-being and diet. And like it's so disrespectful. Like, it's just disrespectful because it's like, look at like folks like Lizzo that are super active, but also, right, like I follow like a bunch of like fat Black yogis, right, that like really are so strong and so active, and like society, like there's a death grip on this notion that like obesity is what's killing America. And I'm like, there are other issues at play here, you know what I mean? And even still, it results in everybody, you know, being like, oh, are you looking to lose weight? Oh, is there something I can connect you to? And it's like, we're never given space to just exist.
I think that's true. And I think that's the problem too, like with when I'm talking to like specifically about health and maybe more like wellness, is that those notions are killing people. People are being gaslit and dismissed because they take one look at you and they've already decided this is what your diagnosis is. And that's completely dangerous and unfair. But I was thinking that, you know, maybe I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this, but like, I think when I think of fat phobia, I think that is it's a white supremacist notion, but it's also kind of like a very anti-Black thing, because if you look at, like, I always think about the women in my family, all the women in my family have larger bodies, and we all have like a certain kind of body type that historically I think is very like West African. You see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely. Okay. I knew exactly. Yeah.
So then you look at like what modern day medicine is, but let's take it back to like the people who decided what was considered beautiful, what was considered healthy. These are the same people that have colonized, industrialized, and set the standards for everything. This foundation that is America now. And so I'm thinking like this was born out of like hate toward our bodies. Like hate toward Black bodies. Black women specifically from those areas have always had larger bodies, and it wasn't like about the big ass, big booty, but just like bigger women, and it was always something that was celebrated. And in my neighborhood, like, this is why I get so annoyed about the thick thing, because everybody's saying thick now. Okay, where I grew up, when you started to get thick, if you weren't all, it was always celebrated to be full, whatever that meant for you. When I got to college and I would see white girls who were, you know, probably my size, and they were crying because they were saying they were fat. Now it's like you said, it's not the same, but it is along those same, like that same spectrum of like, it's acceptable to a certain extent. And that's probably even more acceptable because it's like you said, like having the curves and all of that, or it's just enough, but not too much. But these are things that have deep racist roots. And so we can't talk about things like fat phobia without talking about, you know, anti-Blackness and the anti-Black racist medical industry. And so and Sharmon, I know you probably want to.
No, I'm, you know, just thinking in the health and the medical area just brings me to the BMI, which is a huge source of a lot of their, I don't even know the word to give it.
Eugenics?
We're just gonna call it ridiculousness.
That's that too, yeah.
That's what we're gonna call it. But that's, you know, the source of most of it. And even today, like all medical professionals know it's complete BS. Right. They all know that. They know it's not really accurate. They know it's, you know, not a good measure, but they will all like go to their deathbeds defending it because it's like the best, you know, measurement that they have. And like the whole system was based on eugenics. The whole thing was this method of seeing who was like the fittest and, you know, the most, the top of the food chain, really. And that was what the whole system came out of. And yet I'm not defending it. They are still defending this mess and still using it as a means to, you know, to say who and who isn't healthy. And I'm like, and not to mention, I can't even remember the year it was, but without even saying anything to anybody, the medical association, whoever it is, again, I think is it the AMA?
American Medical Association. That sounds right.
Yeah, I think so.
It is today, right? Today. But I mean, like, so they dropped the measurement they dropped the number They ain't really say nothing, but all of a sudden, like literally overnight, half the country's obese because they dropped this number.
Yeah.
No, nothing ever changed except for this number.
It's like if you're over 120 pounds when you're 5'4", you're obese. I'm like, no, like, and it's rooted in anti-Blackness too. Like, because who, like, yeah, just, yeah.
But how can we just like stop policing people's bodies in general? Like, why, like that, and I was thinking about it because Celeste, you were like, you've gone to the doctor and you're like, they automatically just say this. I had high cholesterol when I was 17. Like, it was bad. Like, I was dancing still. So by today's standards, I was probably physically looking fit.
Right.
Whatever the fuck that means. Right. I had high cholesterol. I had so many issues. My acne was out of control. And my knees also, like, I had some issues. It was from the way I was eating and the way I was just living at that time. And also, I don't even want to get into nutrition space because that's also problematic. Ooh. But what my point is that had, like, I was a smaller, physically seemingly fit person that was completely fucking unhealthy at 17, high cholesterol. So yeah, it's harmful. And I think when I want to make a pivot here, because you talked a lot about fashion, and that is like something I really have been working on my relationship with lately. There are so many different groups of people, and I can never say that I'm a part of those groups, but the way that certain groups of people, fat bodies, get excluded from even simple pleasures as just enjoying beautifully, like, put together, like, garments is also a fucking issue. Like, I know my sister will shop or whatever, and her and my mom go shopping together all the time. And they I think their favorite place right now is probably Torrid. But the price points are higher, right? Like, and I think the quality is, I don't know, I can't speak to the quality, but would you say it's
quality is like mid?
The price point, I don't think matches the quality. But not then if you shift to something like, shopping for a brand that, all the things that we care about is like, okay, this brand is being mindful of how their garment workers are being paid, like, then the price point is higher. It's even more expensive. Like, then, like, if I were to buy something and then you were to buy something, you pay more, and it might be coming from the same place, right?
100%. They do it based off of just even the amount of fabric they use, apparently.
Right.
Justification to charge $20 more.
Right. And my issue with this is also, like, but then I'm not even liking what you're producing. Like,
Katie,
the quality. And
it's so funny that you mentioned Torrid, because the first TikTok that I ever had go viral was me talking shit about how Torrid gives us floral prints and skulls and crossbones, and they're like, go ahead, you're fashionable now, right? They still giving peplum tops in 2021, right? Everything got a cold shoulder. And I'm like the few brands that we do have that we are able to frequent, like, don't even make an effort to, like, follow, like, the trends, or, like, to be in a space where it's like, what's going to be available to you at not that you'd ever shop here, Jesus, like a Forever 21, right? Or like, like the options just don't match. And so it's funny you say that, because I think about it all the time, right? Before Torrid, there was Avenue and Lane Bryant, and I'm like, you got 17-year-old girls out here dressed like somebody librarian, and it's like the options are limited. And something else that I thought of too while you were speaking is something that I think straight size people are super guilty of, is when thrifting, buying things that are 3-4 times bigger than their size, to, like, edit and cut it up and, like, whatever. It's like, I get it, but then, like, that is yet another ethical and sustainable space that big folks go to, and, like, they pull up and all the 3X's are gone because homegirl wants to design something or turn a shirt into a dress, and it's like, people aren't thinking from, like, an inclusive mindset in that regard, right? Like, they wouldn't like if I went and bought all the extra smalls and turned them into, like, leg garters or something. Like,
I am so glad you brought that up, because I'm glad you brought that up too. The whole time is just like the secondhand industry. And there's a girl that I follow on there, and she's always changing up the clothes and how she doing, trying to show people how to style clothes and like change up their grandma clothes. But then she started talking about get them like 2 to 3 sizes bigger. And I'm like, please don't.
Literally don't. You're like, we're already limited to like one little rack at the Goodwill. Like,
yeah.
Don't do it. Like, yeah, I don't feel like I ever got to like truly enjoy like the thrifting like experience. And like, it's something I'd like to do because I'd like to stop buying so much from like a lot of these bigger brands. But like, where is the accessibility to do so? Right. Like, I'm either spending an arm and a leg or I'm searching through all of these various thrift shops that are ran through, you know what I mean? And it's like, so I do not shop as sustainably as I would like to, because like, I'm just trying to find cute stuff. And like that in itself is a journey, right? Every time I have like a formal event that's coming up, like it is a whole ordeal trying to find something that like is beautiful. And also because it's like, I think they still design plus size clothing as though we're trying to hide our bodies. And it's like, nah, baby, I've learned to love all of this. So give me something so I can stunt, right? Like, give me something so I can show it all. And it's like, it's still as though every industry still wants us to be ashamed or wants us to still aspire to less, but it's, you know what, everything goes back to capitalism and white supremacy, right?
It does.
Think about the diet industry, you think about the elective surgery industry, right? Like you think about like all of these spaces in which it's like, okay, well, you're going to see that you can't get the clothes that you want here. So we're going to market you XYZ shake or workout plan or what have you. And it's like, I think the diet industry has never given a damn about true wellness. Like in any.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yeah.
Like, just tell them dollar bills, y'all.
Exactly. They don't care about wellness because wellness doesn't look like us all reaching 120 pounds and starving ourselves and eating 1,000 calories a day. And I say this as someone, right? Like as most big people, right? Like I've been in spaces where I've lost a lot of weight and then I've gained it back and I've tried every diet, you name a diet, I've tried it, right? Like, and when I was my smallest, right, I was working out twice a day. I was eating 1,100 calories a day. Like that was not healthy. Like my hair was thinning, like that was not healthy. I'd get lightheaded because I wasn't having enough carbs. Like it's just, I've had to completely relearn my relationship with food and like my relationship with like moving my body,
right,
because of all the toxicity of the diet industry. And like I don't know if I meant to make that pivot, but like I think it's important to name, right? Because if there were not fat phobia, then we could focus on true wellness and not just whatever's going to help us drop pounds quickly.
Right. Exactly.
And true wellness looks like creating safe spaces for people with fat bodies. It looks like, you know, last year, Sharmon, we were a part of that conference. I'm not going to say the brand. I know you have, we've talked, but I don't know if you tuned in that day, but they were like asking like, how can we be a part of this? And it's the same thing. It's like, we need people with those lived experiences being the ones creating for people.
Absolutely.
Like it makes no sense for certain people to, I don't think it's wrong for people who are designers to extend their sizes and make sure that they have sizes for all the bodies, as many bodies as they possibly can.
They should do that. Yeah.
And they should do that. But I also think, can we also stop taking up space for people who represent those people and support them and back them and encourage them. But we don't do that in sustainable fashion because there's only a handful of brands, and Sharmon is one of them, that has, you know, larger sizes. So it's like, I don't know. I'm talking, it's funny. This is a podcast, but I'm like talking all this through so I can figure out within
ESJ, like Katie, you're unpacking it.
Yeah, you're unpacking. That's what's supposed to happen.
But so I kind of want to go back to something you said earlier, Celeste, about basically this almost idealized version of fat. Like as they starting to recognize that people are wanting more inclusivity, people are wanting, you know, to see bigger bodies because over, you know, 2/3 of the country are, you know, and so, yeah, I feel you on this idea of this idealized fat body, that hourglass shape, that no rolls,
right? Not a roll in sight. Where the rolls at? I need the Texas Roadhouse rolls. Where are they at?
Like I feel like it gets internalized, and we we don't even realize it, you know? Like,
Right.
I feel like I saw this woman on the street, and I'll be praising people on Instagram all the day. Mm-hmm. And I saw this woman on the street who had her stomach out, and it took me back for a minute, because I'm like, she wasn't even that big. And I was like, hold up, like, why did that take me back? Like, why did that suddenly shock me when I see this all the time? And I had to think back, and I'm like, okay, we're getting like fed very specific body types.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And if we don't think we've got some unpacking, even as individuals, to do some unlearning, it's deeply ingrained. Like, I can't sit here. I'm not going to sit here and say, just like anti-Blackness, we have some unlearning to do with that.
I can't internalized. Yeah.
It's all there. And so it's disturbing when I've been around people who, the conversation of, you know, someone with an acceptable body type, mainstream acceptable, can wear something where they're showing pretty much everything, every part, whatever, booty hanging out, titties, whatever. And someone a few sizes larger than that can wear that same thing. They're like, that's not appropriate. Oh, okay. So then why can we dissect why this is not appropriate now? Right. And it's a similar conversation, like, to, you know, just having a curvier body in general. Certain things send a certain message because of the way we've been programmed, that it's suddenly seductive and suggestive, mm-hmm. right? But if you take someone with, you know, with narrow hips and put them in the same thing, that message might not be received the same way, right?
You talk about my hips like that? No.
What'd you say?
I said, why are you talking about my hips like that?
No, I'm not talking about, no, but no. I have nothing to say. Celeste, what would you?
Well, I was just going to say that, like, yes, we all have internalized fat phobia, the way we all have internalized anti-Blackness, right? The way we've all been conditioned to think of things in such binary ways, right? Nothing is Black or white, right? Like, it, period. And so, but there's a lot of unlearning, right? It took me forever to wear a crop top out. Like, I was just like, oh, I got my belly hanging out. Oh, you see my rolls. Oh, da da da. Then I'm like, nah, this is my body and I look good. And if it makes you uncomfortable, that's on you to unpack and navigate. Like, it is not my responsibility to make myself palatable for whatever gaze, right? Whether it be for the socially acceptable gaze, the male gaze, right? Like, I don't exist for that. Like, I think, because like you said, right, there's something I could put on, right? And it's all of a sudden a problem, or it's too much. But if somebody that is 100 pounds lighter than me puts it on, their fashion goals and doing X, and why can't both just be, right? Like, why does everything require commentary, whether internal or external? Mm-hmm. And I think that's it, right? Like, I think all unlearning fat phobia is about, for me, is like being able to exist and be comfortable in your body and thank your body for what it's carried you through, regardless of what it looks like, and like treat your body with kindness, right? And kindness does look like, you know, hydrating enough and like getting in movement where it makes sense and feeding yourself whole foods, like, but kindness to your body doesn't have to equal starving yourself or killing yourself in the gym or trying to make your body built the way it is, right? If you have polycystic ovarian syndrome or thyroid issues or whatever, first of all, it's no one's business, right? They're not your doctor, but why can't people just be like, but it's because so many folks are hell-bent on believing that they don't have internal work to do around these issues. Right. Even so many people that share this identity, right, that are also fat people. Like, they're viewing fat as inherently wrong, the same way society has always viewed Black as inherently wrong, right? Like, the two issues are forever inextricably linked. Like, it's just, yeah. And then I think, like, even, you know, when you were talking about how if somebody with narrow hips wears something and somebody with wider hips wears something, it's all of a sudden sexualized, right? Like, it all comes back to hypersexuality, which again is also a tool of anti-Blackness, because Black women as is are sexualized from our youth. Right. Absolutely. So you add a little extra meat to that, right? Then it's like, it starts even earlier. Like, think about it, right? Like, the most disgusting thing I think of all the time is, like, you know, have you ever been told, like, oh, you can't wear that, you know, your family's going to be here, or there are men in this house, or there's ooh, right?
Yeah.
It's just like,
what? Don't even get me started going a long rant about that.
Look, but no, I'm just thinking about it all, and it's just, there's so much like unlearning to do and so much work to do. And one of my closest friends is actually working on creating a collective around just like reading different pieces and writings about folks around like body dysmorphia and around like, you know, fatness and around like relationships with food and around all of that. And I'd love to share with y'all in the world, like when that launches. But I think that there are fat folks, there are, you know, bigger people that are writing about how we navigate this. And I think it's on us the same way we expect non-Black people to do the work to like find their role in like fighting for like more equity and access. Like same concept. It's the same.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always think about, and this is probably a good place to kind of, you know, Celeste, I know you probably have more that you want to share after this, but a good final kind of like note is whenever I think of safe spaces, like I'm not talking about physically safe, because I mean, I don't know how many times I would even say that I've personally felt physically threatened. It is the mental and emotional stuff that I'm talking about. When you walk into a room, or if someone asks you, hey, do you want to be a part of this fashion show? You'll have a whole mental gymnastics thing that you'll have to go through of like, what am I going to be wearing? How am I going to be portrayed? Like, those are things that exist. Or even something as simple like you're going on a date. Okay, does he know like what I look like? Does he know that does he know that I'm a bigger body? Like those, I mean, like,
you know, I'm fat, right?
Do they, not he, just he, but they in general, like, do they know that I'm a bigger body? And it's just like, that doesn't feel, and I can't speak to that in its totality, but that doesn't feel like a safe thing. And so, like you said, we do have to do our part to create safe spaces for people, and we've got to like do our part to unpack this racist medical industry and dismantle it all, because it kills Black women all the time. But that's what I think every time when we're talking about unpacking these things, we have these conversations, we unpack them so we can arrive at solutions where we can say, this is how I imagine the world that we should live in, and this is what I want to work toward. And any work that we do, if it is not fighting for making space for people who are most vulnerable, for people who are more susceptible to these harms that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, then we're not doing shit. That
I mean, you said it. I'll drink my water to that. Okay.
But we gotta get some better clothes. Right?
Real, give me something. Give me, like, I still be cute, but it's like I got a finesse. Like, it's
Look, I want to so bad. My life just not. One of these days, though. One of these days, y'all just go ahead and speak it. Let's just put it out there.
I know that's right. Manifest it.
I got this. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna have the full line that I really want.
I know you will. I know you will. And I'll be there ready to support, because I need some cute fashion in my life.
Fashion is beautiful. I love fashion so much. And it just, like, I know that not everybody has that same connection to it. And mine has certainly grown because I've been also very bored with a lot of things. So I've been just like, this is something, but it's like, for me, it is an art form. I do think it's like a really fun way to express, you know, different layers of your being. And so when I think about like people who also love that, not being able to experience the fullness of it, it doesn't feel right. And so, yeah, I do think I have a part with ESJ to do more to make sure that doesn't have to continue to be a reality.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And Sharmon, your line is coming 2022.
There you
That's
go.
Pressure.
I know. Let's go. We love a little pressure.
Can we say 2023?
We'll say 22, 23. How about that?
Yeah, that's 23. That's a good one. That's good, yeah. Right? That means that you could be December of 2022 going into like it. That's as far back as.
And that's my birthday month, so I'll take it.
Yeah,
it does. I love it.
Thank you for coming, Celeste. Before we, end this beautiful and necessary conversation, did you want to like share with our listeners and our viewers of where they can follow you? I know your TikTok is the hot spot right now.
So. Oh yeah, which I forget about all the time. So on TikTok, I'm Celeste Alana, CelesteAlana. My Instagram is that, but with an underscore in the front. And my Twitter is Lestealana, so Lestealana. So I mean, it's pretty easy. I'm pretty easy to find, but I mean, all you're gonna see is me mostly talking shit about a variety of issues and random thoughts that come to my head, as it should be, because it's mine. So thank y'all so much for having me. This has been fun, and I think it's an important conversation that we definitely want to continue to have, and maybe other folks that hear this and see this will start thinking more about how they look at these issues too.
Yes, thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah.